Today's response is entitled War on Iran and the Pax Judaica. The war on Iran started maybe 3 weeks ago or more. And there are those who have criticized me. Why have I been silent? Why am I not speaking on the subject or speaking more on the subject? But I can't answer them. But there are others who will listen and understand when I explain why I did not speak for so long and why I'm taking my time in responding to the war on Iran. Let me explain for those of you who still have a capacity to understand. It's because Allah says in the Quran, this is Surah Al-Nahl, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ونزلنا عليك الكتاب تبيانا لكل شيء وهدى ورحمة وبشرى للمسلمين. That I have sent down this Quran on you, O Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, that this Quran might explain all things. Would you mind if I repeat that? Because there are people who are hard of hearing. That I have sent down this Quran that it might explain all things. And therefore, this Quran must explain the reality of the world as events unfold in the world. And it is the function of the scholars of Islam to turn to the Quran and turn to the Hadith to the extent that the Hadith is in harmony with the Quran. To locate in the Quran that which explains the reality of the world today, and then to convey that information to the believers who believe in the one God. And I have been making a humble effort, a very humble effort all my life to fulfill that duty of Islamic scholarship. And I began with my first response to the war in Iran, perhaps 1 week ago, offering a response to the rabbis in Israel who are actively declaring that the war on Iran is a war on Gog and Magog. They have a version, an understanding of Gog and Magog. And on the basis of what they understand of the subject of Gog and Magog, they declare that this war on Iran is a war on Gog, and the war on Magog is to come, is a war on Russia. And I spent maybe 30, 40 minutes in my first response on the war on Iran in doing what perhaps no one else is doing. That Gog and Magog in the Quran and Sunnah differs from what they consider to be the subject of Gog and Magog. Their understanding is different from what is in the Quran and absolute truth in the Quran. I don't want to repeat what I have said in the previous video, which so many of you have already viewed and you have commented on it favorably. Alhamdulillah, thank you for that. That the war on Iran is being waged by the United States and Israel, and that based on truth which is in the Quran, which I've explained with clarity, for people who still have the capacity to understand. Unfortunately, not all the people have that capacity to understand anymore. I have explained from the Quran and from the Hadith, to the extent that the Hadith are in harmony with the Quran, but those who control power. This is simple English. So don't ask me who are Gog and Magog. Those who control power in modern Western civilization, as well as those who control power in Israel today, they are Gog and Magog. And I do not intend to return to that subject because I have more to speak on today. So we have rebutted the rabbis from Israel on this subject of Gog and Magog, if no one else is doing it. I remember 2 years ago when I attended that conference in Moscow on multipolarity, and then after the conference was over, I was invited to join a small group for dinner with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. And when I was speaking with him in that dinner, and I brought up the subject of Gog and Magog, he confessed, he said, I do not know anything about this subject. But he did ask me whether I could write on the subject of what the Quran says about Russia. And then I went on to write by Allah's kindness and grace, a groundbreaking book. Nobody ever wrote on it before me. The Quran and Russia's Destiny. Here it is. I have only one copy here in the Caribbean. Only one copy. The Quran and Russia's Destiny. And the good news is that I got my passport and I'm applying for my visas. And I hope to be able to travel to Moscow on May the 1st. If you are listening to me anywhere in the world, please receive this new information that I hope to travel now to Moscow on the 1st of May as scheduled, and that we'll have the launch of this book in Moscow on the 5th of May, inshallah. So now I refer to this book because in this book I have explained the subject of Gog and Magog, as I did in the previous book entitled An Islamic View of Gog and Magog in the Modern World. So now today I want to turn to a second explanation of the war on Iran from an Islamic eschatological perspective, and that is the messianic interpretation of the movement of history. That's a difficult term for some people to understand. In the philosophy of history, I was blessed to be a student of a great teacher who taught me the philosophy of history. May Allah have mercy on his soul, Professor Dr. Burhan Ahmad Farooqi, who was a contemporary of Maulana Fadlur Rahman Ansari at Aligarh Muslim University, at a time when Aligarh was at the pinnacle of Islamic scholarship. And the term a messianic interpretation of the movement of history is connected with what the Prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, said concerning the signs of the last day. That one of the signs of the last day is someone known as Al-Masih al-Dajjal. Dajjal who will claim to be the Messiah. The Quran declares that the Messiah is Nabi Isa, alayhi salam, Jesus, the son of the Virgin Maryam, alayhi salam. And he is the true Messiah. And this is an impostor who seeks to impersonate the true Messiah. So he's known as Dajjal, the false Messiah. And if he is to impersonate the true Messiah and declare from Jerusalem, I am the Messiah, then these are the things that he will have to do. And they seem to be impossible. Number one, the Holy Land is now under Muslim rule. The Ottoman Empire has taken over from the Arabs. But Dajjal will have to liberate the Holy Land for the Jews. Number two, not only will he have to do that, but Allah had destroyed Jerusalem. He says that in Surah Al-Anbiya. And Allah had expelled the Jews from the Holy Land. He says that in Surah Al-Anbiya. And Allah had placed a ban on them from ever returning to Jerusalem to reclaim it as their own. He says that in Surah Al-Anbiya. And Dajjal will have to bring them back, bring the Jews back to Jerusalem to reclaim it as their own. And Allah says in Surah Al-Anbiya, yes, that they will never return to Jerusalem to reclaim it on their own, as their own, until Gog and Magog are released, number one. And number two, they spread out in all directions, and hence with their indestructible power, they will take control of power in the world. And now, for those of you who still have the capacity to think, for you I am talking, not for the rest. This is an event which will occur only once in history. That a godless people, a ruthless people, an oppressive people will take control of power in the world. And then they will use that power to bring the Jews back to Jerusalem to reclaim it as their own. And they are Gog and Magog, and this will happen only once in history. And because you still have the capacity to think, you will recognize that this has already happened, and you will know who are Gog and Magog. The rest, forget them. So now then, not only would Dajjal have to do, number one, liberate the Holy Land for the Jews. Number two, bring the Jews back to Jerusalem to reclaim it as their own 2,000 years after Allah had expelled them and banned their return. Number three, he will have to restore a state of Israel in the Holy Land. And number four, most important of all for today's lecture, he will have to cause that state of Israel to become a ruling state in the world. Only then will he stand up in Jerusalem to declare, I am the Messiah. 25 years ago, I wrote Jerusalem in the Quran, and the world of Islamic scholarship has ignored my book. And there are those who will be offended by my even saying this. I'm not allowed to say this. No, you mustn't say this. That the scholars of Islam have ignored my. Be silent. Don't say anything. So, 25 years. I'm sorry, it is so funny. 25 years ago, I wrote Jerusalem in the Quran to say, but he has already succeeded in liberating the Holy Land from the Muslim rule in 1917, when the British Army conquered Jerusalem. And you're still saying Dajjal is not yet released? Number two, he'll have to bring the Jews back to Jerusalem to reclaim it as their own. And I've said to you, but he's already done that between 1917 and 1948. The Jews were brought back to Jerusalem to reclaim it as their own. And number three, I said that he have to restore a state of Israel in the Holy Land. But he's already done that in 1948. So where is Dajjal? How many times do I have to explain? Thank Allah that my students have sharpness of understanding. The Dajjal comes first as a shadow. Our Prophet said that when Dajjal is released into the world, he will live for 40 days. One day would be like a year, and therefore, in one day, which is like a year, he would not be in our dimension of space and time. But that is too difficult, for the dum-dums. And then there'll be a day which will be like a month. So in a day which is like a month, he's already released into the world, but he's not in our world of space and time as yet. And then he'll have a day which is like a week, and at that time he's already released into the world, but he's not in our world of space and time. So if he's not in our world of space and time, how is he in our world at that time? In what capacity? So Dajjal's footprints are in three parts from this hadith of Tamim al-Dari. I turned to Surah Al-Mursalat as perhaps no one ever did before me. That does not mean that I'm wrong. Then Allah speaks in Surah Al-Mursalat, Ba'ada'uzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, and he said, Intaliku ila zillin zi salasi shu'ab. This is ayah mutashabiha, and I have offered an interpretation, and there is no need for boxing gloves over interpretation. Only Allah can confirm that an interpretation is correct. So when we interpret the Quran, we have the right to do so. But we must say Allah knows best. And if we are right in our understanding and explanation, it becomes the truth. And the truth will the truth will survive. The dogs can keep on barking, but the caravan will move on. If you interpret the Quran correctly, it becomes truth and it will survive. And if you interpret it and you are not correct, we pray Allah to still bless you for the effort that you made to try to interpret the Quran sincerely, not to create fitna, not to create a new sect, not to divide the Muslims, not to pick up boxing gloves. No. We are trying to interpret the Quran with a sincere effort, knowing that only Allah can confirm an interpretation is correct. And if we are wrong, tomorrow it'll go down the river of no return and be forgotten. I have interpreted the Quran wrongly in the past, and my critics are so happy. You look at him, he made a mistake. Well, I'm also happy when I make a mistake. I'm also happy because I'm only human and I can correct myself. But when I make a mistake, I want to correct myself before you can correct me. So now then, the footprints of Dajjal from the hadith of Tamim al-Dari is 3 parts. And this verse of the Quran speaks of a shadow comprised of 3 parts. And so I have identified the shadow, and Allah knows best, as Dajjal. It is only after the Great War, prophesied by Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, the Malhama. And then after the Great War, after means A-F-T-E-R, after the Great War, which means that the Great War must first take place and then this will take place. That's the meaning of after. After the Great War, then a Muslim army will conquer Constantinople. And I have offered the view that the reason why a Muslim army will conquer Constantinople is so we can correct that monstrous wrong committed in the past. That we will return Hagia Sophia to those to whom it rightfully belongs, apologize to them for this monstrous wickedness which was done, the shameful thing to take a Christian cathedral and convert it shamefully so, disgracefully so, into a masjid. So we will return Hagia Sophia to those to whom it rightfully belongs. And only then, said our Prophet, Allah's blessing be upon him, only then will the shadow disappear and Dajjal will appear in person. And he will be a Jew. He will be a young man. He'll be powerfully built, and he'll have what is this called? The sideburns that the Jews have, that the Israelite people are ordered to keep in the Torah. There are those of you, mashallah, 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 who are quick of understanding. Allah has put light in your hearts so you can understand the subject of Dajjal. But the others, Allah is very angry. And he uses angry language. When I'm angry, they're angry with me. Why are you so angry? But when Allah is angry, they're silent. Summun, bukmun, umyun fahum la yarji'un, says Allah. This is harsh language. This is angry language. Deaf, dumb, blind, says Allah. They'll never return to the truth. And so now then, Dajjal has to now cause Israel to become the ruling state in the world. And only then will he stand up in Jerusalem and declare, I am the Messiah. When he does so, sorry, I'm laughing. Oh, excuse me. When he does so, my students, I may not be in the world, my students and many others who have eyes and who can see would say, this is Dajjal. They will have no doubt at all. This is Dajjal, of which our Prophet is one. This is the false Messiah. And the Jews will say, no, no, this is the true Messiah. And the Salafi, my Salafi brothers, would say, you're wrong. You're wrong. This can't be Dajjal. Our Prophet said Dajjal sees with one eye. This man is seeing with two eyes. He can't be Dajjal. And we will only smile. We won't bother to answer on that. You have to forgive me for laughing. You have to forgive me for laughing. Now then, this is Dajjal's mission. That in order for him to fulfill his mission of impersonation of the Messiah, he will have to also cause Israel to become the ruling state in the world, which is Pax Judaica. I wrote all of these things 25 years ago in Jerusalem in the Quran. I don't have a copy with me, but if you don't have a copy of that book, please try to get a copy. All my life so far, I have placed all my books on my website for free download. I spent 2 years to write a book. I earned my modest livelihood as a writer, and yet I put everything on my bookstore, on my website for free download for all these years. Now, because the nose is tightening and the income is falling, and I still have so much obligations in my old age, I have now decided that we will no longer allow our books to remain for free download, but you can get a copy, a soft copy, with a small fee, maybe £1 or so. And that is going to come soon. So my book, The Quran and Russia's Destiny, has not been placed on my website as yet. My new book, which is a big book, Dajjal's Footprints in Time, will not be put on my website for free download. The book which I've just started on the Quran, the crucifixion and the return of Jesus, Nabi Isa alayhi salam, will not be put on the website for free download. The book on the Quran and Pakistan's destiny, which is not going to be an easy book to write, will not be put on my website for free download anymore. You can't condemn me. You can't criticize me, because for 20 years you've been able to download all my books free of charge, and I have no regrets for that. So now then, if this is the master plan, that Israel is waging the war on Iran in order to advance the agenda of establishment of Pax Judaica, I ask you, my students, to now help me, because one mind is not enough. I don't have all the knowledge in the world. There are some things in which some of you will have more knowledge than me. Oh, Allah might bless you with more insight than me, and I will pray to thank Allah for that day when my students climb higher than I have ever climbed in the mountain. Be blessed to climb in the mountain. I pray for that day. So now then, free of charge, and I have no regrets for that. So now then, if this is the master plan, that Israel is waging the war on Iran in order to advance the agenda of establishment of Pax Judaica, I ask you, my students, to now help me, because one mind is not enough. I don't have all the knowledge in the world. There are some things in which some of you will have more knowledge than me. Oh, Allah might bless you with more insight than me, and I will pray to thank Allah for that day when my students climb higher than I have ever climbed in the mountain. Be blessed to climb in the mountain. I pray for that day. So now then, in order for Pax Judaica, I'm speaking slowly now. This is the new lecture. In order for Pax Judaica to be established, as was established before it, Pax Americana and Pax Britannica, you have to eliminate all possible rivals and threats. And Britain did that ruthlessly. And the United States of America has done that ruthlessly. And so in order for Israel to establish Pax Judaica, Israel has to remove, at least from its region in which it's located, all possible rivals and all threats. And that is what Israel has been doing. Libya stood up and resisted Israel, and now Libya is gone. Syria stood up and resisted Israel. And tell the dogs to stop barking. If you have a different view from mine, go ahead and publish your view. Don't come after me. Libya stood up and resisted, and Libya is gone. Syria stood up and resisted, and Syria is gone. Yemen stood up and resisted, and Yemen is being destroyed. Lebanon, the south of Lebanon, stood up and resisted, and the south of Lebanon is now in fire and flames. And Iran, most of all, stood up and resisted with exceptional courage and integrity. And so Iran has to be eliminated as a rival and as a threat. And that is the reason for the war on Iran. It is not just the elimination of a nuclear threat. That's only part of the story. The other part of the story is at the end of this war, Iran must not remain a rival and a threat. Will they succeed? Will Israel succeed? I want to answer to you and to say to you honestly and truthfully as a scholar of the Quran, I do not see any reason why Israel should not succeed. If you see it, kindly publish your views. I have not seen Iran being faithful to the Quran in respect of money and riba. I have not seen Iran being faithful to the Quran and Sunnah in respect of understanding the reality of the modern age. The modern Western civilization is the creation of Dajjal. Is there any Ayatollah in Iran who's ever said this? That those who control power in the modern West and in Israel are Gog and Magog. Is there any Ayatollah in Iran who's ever said this? That Pax Britannica and Pax Americana are meant to pave the way for Pax Judaica, and these are the three parts of the shadow of Suratul Mursalat, and these are the three parts of the Hadith of Tamim Udari. Is there any Ayatollah in Iran who has said this? I have not seen anything of Islamic eschatology in Iran to convince me that they have been faithful to the Quran and Sunnah with insight to understand the reality of the world today. And I can keep on preaching to Iran for another 25 years. It will make no difference. So then where can I find evidence that Israel will not succeed in what Israel wants to do with Iran? But it is not just that Israel is seeking to eliminate Iran's rivalry and to remove the threat from Iran. Israel has a bigger agenda than that. And this is where I need help from my students. And mashallah, Allah has blessed me. And they're not just only male, they're also women. They are brilliant Muslim women, mashallah. I don't want to mention names, but they are brilliant. as they are in contact with me. And they are analyzing the subject better than any Maulana and Ayatollah. These are sisters. And so now, I want to conclude this part of the subject by giving you an appetizer for you to think about, to taste. I am certainly not going to explore and exhaust the subject. I believe that Israel is seeking a bigger agenda in its war on Iran, supported by the United States, than simply the elimination of Iran as a rival and a threat. Rather, Israel is seeking to transform the world, to make the world easier for Israel to become a ruling state. And part of that is the world economy concerned with oil. Part of that is the world economy dependent on gas. Part of that is the world of agriculture dependent on fertilizers. Part of that is the world of transportation dependent on oil tankers passing through the Gulf, the Arab Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, the Red Sea and so on. Part of that is the Arab world that is rich, the Gulf monarchies and Saudi Arabia, and who, because of their wealth, may feel that they have some measure of independence and don't need to submit as slaves before Israel. And so this war is meant to seek to so destroy the world's oil economy in such a way that at the end of this world, the supporters of Israel would control oil in the world. And finally, control gas and oil in the world and control fertilizers in the world. Last word, I know you will be annoyed with me that I'm not speaking greater detail on this part of the subject. The oil economy, the gas economy, the fertilizer economy, travel and communications, the survival of the Gulf countries and Saudi Arabia as wealthy countries. There will be destruction of their wealth and they'll become slaves tomorrow. But you will be annoyed with me for not speaking with more details on this subject because I want you to do the homework. Before I end, why is Russia behaving the way Russia is doing? And why is the United States so mysteriously trying to build an accommodation with Russia? That is the question. Answer. The answer is Russia must not. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me why. Because I'm not going to answer you. In the same way that I've never explained this subject before about Russia and Israel. I refuse to do it. So too, I'm not going to answer this question. I want you to think. I want you to think. In order that Russia will never project a profile of a rival to Israel and a threat to Israel, Russia will always behave the way that Russia is now behaving. The reason for this is because Russia is not supposed to do that until the true Messiah returns. This is part of the divine wisdom. So don't blame Russia. Don't bad talk Russia. Russia is not destined to play that role before the true Messiah returns. And it is not Russia who will liberate Jerusalem and defeat Israel. It is a Muslim army which will be an unstoppable army, which will leave Khorasan, and no one will be able to stop that army until it reaches Jerusalem. I am not going to speak more on this subject. You already know the subject. I've written on this subject in my book, The Messiah, the Quran, and Akhir Zaman. Read that book, please, The Messiah, the Quran, and Akhir Zaman. All of my books will soon be on my website for download for a small sum of money as e-books. And you can download the whole complete set for e-books, small amount, so I can get some livelihood. But you can also order the complete set uh, uh, in hard copies. And if you want them to be autographed, you'll have to wait until I am physically located in a city where there are stocks of my books, and then I can autograph them for you. And that's how I earn my livelihood. But if you invest in a complete set of my books and you can't afford to pay for the whole set, well, you can pay an easy installment. But you and your children will benefit. Now then, Russia, until the Messiah returns, I am confidently anticipating, as a scholar of Islamic eschatology, that Russia will never adopt a profile that will be a threat to Israel. Russia will never threaten Israel. Not because Russia likes Israel, not because Russia is betraying the Muslims and the Arabs. No, but because this is the divine plan. And so Trump is reaching out to Russia, that with Russia's help, he might be able to put a cap on the price of oil as oil begins to escalate. The price of oil begins to escalate in the world as the Straits of Hormuz are blocked and the oil installations in Qatar are destroyed, in Bahrain are destroyed, in United Arab Emirates are destroyed, and in Saudi Arabia, they're all destroyed. And the capacity of these countries to get wealth from oil vanishes, and they're now reduced to poverty. The world economy is going to be shaken up. And Trump, in order to survive in the United States and the Western countries, the leadership to survive, they need to find an outlet to help with the price of oil. And the only way to solve it is through Russia. And that is why Trump is maintaining a friendly relationship with Russia to get Russia to come and help him, to put a cap on the price of oil, to help with the world oil economy, to help with the gas economy of the world, to help with fertilizers. Russia can help with fertilizers. And with the help of Russia, that is why Trump is trying to get the war in Ukraine to end in a manner favorable to Russia. But they don't understand that. So this is Russia's profile. And Russia understands why the West is behaving like this. And Russia is saying, okay, if this is what the game you want to play, we can also play it. Okay? So Russia is not going to intervene. Don't argue with me. Don't argue with Russia. Don't argue with Allah. If you cannot understand, then wait. Russia is not going to intervene to prevent the emergence of Pax Judaica. I'm sorry to take so much of your time today. I hope next time I won't take so